Is it working? Is it working? It's working. Hello there, you lucky bastards. Woo. Ooh. Somebody call the Martians and tell them they can have their flu back. Oh, I haven't been that sick since I was in the hospital. That was terrible. That was terrible. Don't get that. For what it's worth, I haven't had the new shots this fall. I've had every other shot. Too late now. I've had more shots than Donald Trump. I've had shots you've never heard of. I've had shots you couldn't buy for $1 million. Man, I'm still bleh. But the hallucinations and the chills are gone. I dreamed the Care Bears came and visited me. Man, it was rough. That was rough. That was one of those flus where I won't trigger warning, but okay. And it's one of those flus where my body hair, not just the hair on my head, but the hair, all my eyelashes, the hair on my toes, all the hair on my body hurt. Try existing without disturbing any body hair. That was nasty. That was nasty. That was nasty. Hi, Shane. Full effect? We'll see about that. I'm on medication right now you couldn't buy for $1 million. Mmm. Mmm. Oh, so I keep forgetting. Here's the plan. I will continue to do this. Let's for YouTube, the public YouTube, ad supported, right? Oh well. Today's episode doesn't. JFK. Let's just go ahead and start YouTube and JFK, just as we catch as can. All my JFK people. Remember that scene in Dracula where the three wives are resurrected from their coffins finally? Okay, all my JFK people, arise. Have at you. We'll get the JFK going. There will be no limits on JFK from now on. I'm now ready. You now see how ready I am. We're all ready. We're all ready for the JFK now, I think. Because JFK that's the top of the cake. I don't think there's any doubt there. That's the top of the cake. All right. But if it's conspiracy theories you're looking for, I got a conspiracy theory that makes JFK look like January 6th. However, so premium. So I'm going to work on this as quickly as possible. Madeleine McCann. I keep forgetting. You know absolutely nothing about Madeleine McCann. You don't even know what she looked like. You know nothing about that case. I have cracked that case. I've cracked the murder of Paul Stein. I have cracked Manson. I have cracked Lindbergh. No, I have cracked Madeleine McCann. But the problem is, it's sort of it's a happy ending, really. And so, yeah, that's the thing. It's like Charles Manson. Charles Manson's bragging he got 35 broads on his string. No, Charlie, you're surrounded. You're swarmed by 35 witches. Haven't you noticed? I mean, he specifically wanted them to be witchy. Well, congratulations, Charlie. And he's sitting there in San Quentin going, what am I doing in here? What did I do? Well, we're about to have a president of the United States that makes Squeaky Fromm look like Martha Bush. You know who I'm talking about. Always wore a shirt. Barbara Bush. Actually, do you know? You know nothing about Barbara Bush. Oh my God. I knew nothing about Barbara Bush. You know about Nancy Davis Reagan, right? Biggest whore in Fifth Avenue, I'm told. Been plucked more times than the Rose of Tralee. People said she was, forget Joan Crawford, forget Jean Harlow. They said it was Nancy Davis. Nancy Davis, for a good time called Nancy. That's the way it was. Well, there was a Charlie before Charlie. Now, this was after. Well, during, after. Right after the war. What else do you need to know? I'm alive. We'll find out if that was a good idea or not pretty soon. So I'll be doing a lot of this, and let's just get JFK. Let's just get it rolling. Let's just start talking about JFK. I'm going to be showing you every crazy JFK conspiracy theory and witness known to man. We'll get those out of the way first. Then we'll talk about what really happened. And it's going to be, JFK is going to be the master plan. Because JFK, Zodiac, Son of Sam. Okay, so for premium episodes that have to be on the private server, Madeleine McCann. You got to see Madeleine McCann. I'm pretty sure I still have it. I'm just putting together everything. The original police reports are in Portuguese, which are no problem if you read Latin like I do. They've been translated into English. The point is, it's the perfect case because the actual original police reports from the first couple of days of the investigation tell you everything you need to know. The case is all cracked in there. The whole thing. And there's a false flag operation. There's everything. And there's a thing that goes wrong, which is Gerald McCann calling in the media. He wasn't supposed to do that. They didn't count on that. They did not count on that. He surprised them. He was smarter than they thought. He was a doctor, and they forgot how smart he was. But everything is in there. So first it will be the myth of the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Madeleine McCann was not murdered. Madeleine McCann was not assaulted. Madeleine McCann was not kidnapped per se. No, Kate and Gerald were not in anything together. Kate had no idea what happened either. I'm sure she knows now. I think she's been allowed to visit Madeleine. Whether Madeleine knows those are her parents or not, I don't know. But it's a lesson in the official government disinfo that gets put. You think, well, why would the British government put out disinfo about this case? Oh, it must involve royalty. It must involve high government officials. No. But I can also show you where some of those conspiracy theories come from. There is revenge taken. No, what they're hiding is the British government was breaking the law. British authorities were breaking the law. And they have to hide that. They have to hide Madeleine. She was not kidnapped. And Kate did not know what was going on. This is it's so similar to JonBenet, it's not funny. It turns out that the friends of the family did not all. They're the conspiracy theories and the rumors get out. Well, the friends of the McCanns, the friends of the Ramseys, they all lied to protect their friends. No, they all told the truth. The statements that the friends of the Ramseys, the statements that the friends of the McCanns give to the police, do not make John Ramsey look innocent. They make John Ramsey look guilty as hell. The statements that the friends of the McCanns gave to the police do not make Gerald McCann look innocent. They make Gerald McCann look guilty as hell. The only person who lied was Gerald McCann. You will see that with your own eyes. You can see it now. He's the only person who lied. And as soon as you realize that, and you go through, you look at the witness statements, you look at the police reports, the fingerprints and all this other stuff, it's so obvious what happened, they would have to concoct a ridiculous media circus and they blamed everybody from Clement Freud, who is a pervert. They blame no. That is not what happened at all. And the corpse sniffing dogs, that's all a hoax. That's a hoax. But it wasn't Scotland Yard's idea. This is okay. The three-ring circus gets out of hand, but it's there for a reason, to distract away from the truth. You don't even know what she really looked like, because they did not want the public to identify her. They did not want her rescued. They did not want her spotted. So just like they do with a lot of other cases, they put out pictures of her that did not look like, that's not what she looked like. This happens a lot. The Trump shooter, all the pictures you've seen of him are from 8th grade. They don't show you pictures of what he looked like the day he shot Trump. Why not? They don't want you to know what he looked like. You can find them, but they don't want you to see those pictures. Hi, John. So I'm just on here babbling. I'm not, my feverish, but I'm better. But wow. Oh, wow. My sinuses are half cleared. Half a lung has grown back. I haven't felt that sick in a long time. Wasn't throwing up even. I felt like I felt when I was dying in the hospital. But I'm also aware that dextromethorphan causes as many symptoms as it cures. You understand this, right? So, yeah, and I'm the biggest baby you've ever seen if I'm sick. So, and this was horrible. This was pretty horrible. Get your flu shot if you can find one. It was too late for me. I get all my shots. I'll get one at the end of the season, but I've already had it. Wow. And it was like a full body MRI of all my, I have little spots of arthritis. I literally have arthritis in my ring finger. I have arthritis in my ring finger. I have a little bit of arthritis in my right big toe. I was the kicker on my high school football team. And my brother had taught me how to play soccer, so I could bend it like Beckham. I was pretty good. Not pretty good. I could kick. Kick like a mule. Kick like Francis the talking mule. And where else? Yeah. This is one of those flus. This was all about the inflammation of the hair follicles and the joints. And the eyeballs. Inflammation of the eyeballs. You know how when you put tinfoil over your eyeballs, you can't blink? It's kind of scrapey. The hair in my ears hurt. At first, I thought I had an ear infection. It was just the hair in my ears hurt. The hair in my nose hurt. Wow. I was just a blob of hairy jello in that recliner. I just had Columbo. I was like Columbo, Double Indemnity, couple episodes of Yes Minister, and then back to Columbo. Yeah, that's right, Shane. Yeah. Yeah, you were in charge, Charlie. Charles in charge, that's for sure. Yeah, Jeffrey and Jelaine. Jeffrey Epstein, whatever. Yeah, which one's dead? Um, what else do you need to know? So Madeline, and Manny's dad. It's not that Manny's dad is some kind of monster, but it's not that he's not some kind of monster. No, he's a tool of the system. He was somebody, when you see what I'm going to show you, now that you've seen everything else I've shown you, there's things I can't show you. And one of the things I can't show you is do you know what he asset at GE, blah, blah, blah. From that I've known for a long time about this, this PR guy in New York, being a pretty big chunk. I mean, pretty high value asset for what's called Operation Mockingbird. And so then when I kept telling you, aha, here's the old familiar pattern that I kept noticing as we went through case after case, that's pretty much the guy I was talking about. And it turns out, and then I'm getting ready to start this podcast and I'm looking to see who's doing podcasts, and there's this Manny Grossman, and I'm like, no, it can't be Luis Manuel Grossman, the son of Jim Grossman, can it? And it took a while. At first, Manny was real cagey about admitting it, right? Then he had to admit it. So I thought that was that's one more reason I'm even going to show you anything, is because, why not? Because of Manny. So, yeah, so I need to show you that on the private channel. The guy's not a monster. I haven't found any evidence he's ever committed a crime. He's done a lot of PR work for, but that doesn't mean he's committed a crime. He's not like Colonel Flagg from MASH. I'm not saying he's Major Hochstetter. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not even saying he's Slade Somer. What I'm saying is you can watch Manny's personality for yourself. What I'm saying is, when we talk about Operation Mockingbird and the company, whatever you want to call it, the blob, having its buttons it can push and strings it can pull in the media to get certain stories fluffed, or to get certain stories snuffed, or to get, it's not that you call this reporter to the New York Times and say, hey, I got another fake story for you. No, you call your old buddy from the sorority, the fraternity, or whatever, and you say, hey, how would you like I may have an interesting story for you, right? And you can go there. We will watch the tape. We will listen to some FDR tapes of him telling this operative how to go to Ohio and do this. Okay, it's been going on since before it was called Mockingbird. Fake news put out by the government, by major political parties, by major corporations is nothing new. There is nothing new about anything that you are seeing today. There isn't one new thing. A person would buy a newspaper and leave it, and a poor person would pick it up and read it, and they'd hand it, and people would start writing their comments on the news stories. This has been going on now for almost 200 years. Where is my British penny? This is an American penny from 1832. This is about when Edgar Allan Poe is writing for the newspapers, and it's all tabloid news. He wrote a story exposing tabloid news in 1831. Okay? 200 years ago. And people would leave their comments, or they would discuss. You would have somebody, you go to a bar after work, there'd be a professor in there, there would be an educated person in there, would read the newspaper to everybody. Or church, after church, the pastor would read the newspaper to everybody so they could get the news. Are you with me? There was always some person who you'd go to, and they would read you the news from the newspaper, and then people would discuss. Social media just gets rid of all pretense of courtesy, any pretense that we're not animals eating our own poop in the jungle. Social media is, as Mr. Spock would say, the very flower of humanity. People the way they really are on the inside. That's what anti-social media is. Well, not the media, but the comments. That's who we really are. There's nothing new about any of this. So Mockingbird was more of an official name for an official program. This is more of the company doing it for the company's reasons. And that includes hiring a novelist like Bugliosi to prosecute the Manson family, etc., etc., etc. Well, Manny's dad was a pretty big wheel in that. One of the biggest ones that we could prove, really, this is what's going on. And so I need to show you that. I've been throwing his name around a lot and not showing you anything. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Not a monster, but when I said I started recognizing the pattern, he's pretty much the pattern I kept seeing over and over and over again in these cases. It goes back to him. And this goes back to this case I can't tell you about. But it happened to be at General Electric at their East Coast global headquarters. I wish I could tell you. So when I kept saying, I recognize this, I'm going to show you as much of that as I can in the next couple of months. So it's going to be Madeline McCann, Manny's dad. He's not a monster. He's not guilty of murder. It's just to show you what I was talking about. And I just think it's hilarious. And then, what else have I been promising you? Because the other stuff I can do on YouTube, even if I have to charge you a monthly membership just for my time. Zodiac and all that other stuff, I can do that on YouTube. JFK I can do on YouTube, right? And this just happens over and over and over again. Gaston Bullock Means wrote a book that got published and became a bestseller. It's just full of horse hockey. And it was ghostwritten by the sister of the guy who wrote, okay? There is nothing new. Nothing whatsoever new. Manny might not know. Manny might not necessarily know he's being used or has been used. That's the thing. You don't tell people they're being used. You don't tell the station master, a train's going to come through here full of Jews, we're going to send them off and we're going to murder them all. That's not what you tell them. You just tell them a train's going to come through here, you're going to park it over in that siding for 3 hours, another train, and you're not going to go anywhere near it, your people aren't going to go anywhere near it, and you're not going to ask any questions. Which is how Germany was run in the first place. He didn't tell him what was going on. He didn't have to. He knew the guy wasn't going to ask any questions. Right? Cellular automata. And you think, well, our cellular automata won't be evil. There's no such thing as good or evil. That's only people who just automatically follow certain instructions without asking any questions. The evil comes from the people who operate the machine, not the people who are the machine. Why didn't the people responsible for the Holocaust put a stop to it? They didn't know that's what they were doing. Almost nobody knew what they were doing. That's the second phase. That's another thing I need to talk about, the myth of Hootler and the myth of the Holocaust. I'm not saying those things are totally fictional. What I'm saying is 99% of what you know is myth. You know nothing about Hootler, and you know nothing about the Holocaust. For one thing, it's a conspiracy theory. Doesn't mean it's not true, but that's what it is. It's all, we'll talk about that later, but there's no actual evidence, and 99% of what does pass for evidence in that case all comes from an unbelievably suspect source, the KGB. Doesn't mean it's not true or based on truth. What it means is you couldn't prove it. It is a conspiracy theory. It's really just survivor stories and a few collaborator confessions and a few perpetrator confessions. Most people didn't know. Nobody was told, we're doing this on purpose. There was a war on. First of all, they were very careful not to do anything illegal. What they did was, supposedly did, was not only against international law, against God's law, it was illegal under German law. Even German military law of occupation, it was illegal. So they didn't do that. The things they did would just inevitably lead to mass death. Then you have, because the Germans documented very carefully the first year or so when they're going around shooting everybody. Their own records, there's no doubt about that. The second phase, that's where they were super careful. This is the perfect crime, because they were very careful to never commit a crime. They never cut anybody's rations to zero. They just cut them down to 750 calories a day until they died. But they treated everybody the same. So we did the best we could under the circumstances. It was a war on. It was emergency circumstances. In peacetime, you couldn't get away with that. They were very careful, for one thing, the SS is a private corporation, but not a corporation like Exxon that has shareholders, a corporation like the church. The church has no shareholders, but it is a corporation. So is the Allgemeine SS. It was a corporation with no shareholders. The labor supplied to companies like IG Farben, Daimler-Benz, the company was not responsible for those people. That was contract labor, which is exactly what gets hired, temp labor, to this very day. Company was not liable. The government was not liable. It was all in the hands of a private corporation called the Allgemeine SS, which had no shareholders, had no accountability whatsoever, but it was a corporation. And it was deliberately modeled on the church, which is a corporation with no shareholders. They're very careful not to break the law. Hitler signed the euthanasia legislation, and there was a huge backlash. He never signed another piece of paper like that ever again. I can guarantee you that. Now, there's Hitler on German television and German newsreels publicly declaring war against the United States of America. That's historical evidence. There are documents with his signature on them declaring war against the United States of America. That's history. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's history. They're historical documents of all kinds. He bragged about it. There is no historical evidence to speak of, really. And it all comes from a highly suspect source. In fact, you didn't really hear about the Holocaust until the end of the 70s. You never really heard about it. Um, Hi, Ivana. Tyler Huff. The first camp for Jews only was at Stargard, and that's where renowned forensic pathologist Dr. Werner Spitz's parents were camp doctors. Right. Well, the one, Ivana, you know about the one in Santa Monica, right? That became the first Helter Skelter. There was nothing original. Charlie didn't. Charlie was reading from a script. He's not even the first one. Well, I couldn't play the music on YouTube, but Bill Roberts was the first Charles Manson. They had Bill Roberts on the West Coast and Billy Roberts on the West Coast, and he was actually at Folsom or San Quentin. He was on a chain gang. They had a local news station go out and do a little documentary news story about the local chain gang, and there happened to be a folk singer serving on the chain gang. That was Billy Roberts. This was all sort of staged. It was sort of staged. I think he held up a liquor store or something. And he wrote the song Hey Joe, which was recorded into a big hit by several people. Well, that he's the first Charles Manson. The problem with Billy was he was married. He was married to a woman no one wanted to see on television, let alone listen to. He was very boring. For an outlaw folk singer, he was boring. But they tried real hard, and they were going to maybe make a reality series about his life. Well, I don't know if you've ever worked in the record business. A&R people, they don't go out looking for Nirvana. They go out looking for 12 bands that have a similar vibe from a particular market that they think could go national. And they sign all 12 bands. And then they work, one of these bands is going to we'll kick them up to that next level somehow. It's like the Beatles. Let's get a couple more drummers in here. I think these guys could make it. Let's change their clothes, wash their hair. Let's see what we can do. That's how it's done. That's how it's done. So Billy Roberts was one of the first that they did this with. I'm sure Arlo Guthrie. Because if Woody Guthrie had been younger, they could have made a TV reality. If they'd been TV in the 30s, they could have made a reality series about Woody Guthrie. Okay? And they know this and they're aware of this. On the East Coast at Harvard, it's Mel Lyman, who's got the kind of political, that Diogenes, uber skeptical, funny, socialist folk singer that they're looking for. But he's surrounded by a bunch of, I won't call them gay, but there's no women. There are no women really hanging around, and no sexy broads. And the thing is, these guys have their little cult followings, maybe, but they're not going to be big pop stars. Charlie is an actual convict, an actual criminal who can play and sing. When he drops the Charlie act, he's not a bad folk singer, and he's got a way with the girls. Apparently, he has a way with women. Apparently, and he can surround himself with a harem of women. Right? The TV people are thinking, here's something we might be able to sell Pepsi Cola with. This guy might be able to sell Pepsi Cola. Billy, some of these other guys, they don't have that Q factor. They didn't appeal to women at all. Charlie seems to be able to charm the pants off of women. So maybe he could do it. And then all of a sudden, Bill Vance gets paroled from prison, and Charlie's moving out to the desert doing some CIA false flag thing called Helter Skelter. Hi, Kevin. Yeah, you're talking about the one in Santa Monica? Yep. I love how people think that just because World War II is over, Nazis it was like a bad dream, and the Nazis scarecrow, and then and you were there, and you were there, Heinrich, you were there. Oh, wearing these clown costumes. No, they're still around. They haven't given up. And here's the thing. Here it goes back to the myth of Hitler. The myth, which Hitler himself created, goes like this. Hitler created the whole thing. It was all him. He did it all. He masterminded it all. He led the whole thing, and he directed the whole thing. No. That was the part that he played in front of the cameras. It had been going on a lot longer than that. Not only did Nazism and Leninism, Bolshevism, they came right out of the exact same movement. And they both betrayed that movement in exactly the same way. The movement, which is still around today, go outside and take a deep breath. Smell all that green economy? That's what Hitler promised, a green economy. We'll have the benefits of capital consumerism without the pollution and without the social problems. But that's not what they wanted to abolish industrialism altogether and go back to the Iron Age, even maybe Middle Ages, early Middle Ages. Right, the blood and soil, the land. Almost like Native Americans, but with iron tools and writing. Right, that hippie movement. Get back to the land, which appeals to human beings. We should be horrified. But the Bolsheviks and the so-called capitalists and the so-called Nazis, they all make the compromise. Well, we can tame industrial capitalism and socialize it. We can make it nice. We can make it do nice things. And it's just funny. They both come out of the same movement. They both they both betray that movement in exactly the same way. But they're not remember, for several years, they're on the same side. The SS and the NKVD worked very closely together. There's a very good documentary about that on History Hit. I'm going to show you clips from it. They cross-trained. Their propaganda posters look exactly the same. They were out to exterminate the exact same group of people. Talk about Venn diagrams, They worked together very closely, almost as if they were somehow on a level above their own governments. And these are two groups who believe in social Darwinism. They believe war is inevitable and desirable because it will decide which system is superior, right? It's almost like there was a secret conspiracy that started that war on purpose. But that's just a conspiracy theory. Hi, Kevin. We have to talk about that. Then, what else? Is that it? So those episodes will kind of be dribbling out, and then I'll be doing a lot of this in between. And on YouTube, we can just go right. Let's just talk about JFK whenever anybody wants to pipe up about JFK. We'll talk about every crazy witness who came forward. Every imaginary piece of evidence that people saw and then was whisked away. We'll talk about Werner Spitz. Talk about him a lot. Oh, excuse me. Remember, Manny and his sister have been to the Virgin Islands, and I'm pretty sure, because their grandparents had a small farm, plantation kind of a thing, that they've been to, and I think is it the next island over from, is it what the actual island was called, St. George, right? It's super close. Like when they're 6 years old, they could have been flown to either island and wouldn't have known the difference. But they've been, when they were, Manny showed pictures of him and his sister as little kids going to visit their grandparents' plantation, right? Isn't it the next island over? I don't know if you could swim over, but it's real close. Really, really close. Yeah, Abraham Zapruder. Ivana, we'll bear that in mind. Next time I come on, we'll talk about Abraham Zapruder and that completely unrealistically steady cam. I had no idea it wasn't on a tripod. That was just a handheld. What an amazingly lucky thing to have happened. Look at the videos of the Trump shooting. A split second before the shots are fired, they zoom in on Trump and you can't see who gets hit first. They still haven't talked about who got hit first. Maybe they don't know. And then we'll pause for breath during the election. We'll figure out what to do after Christmas. I'll just be YouTube until after Christmas. So pay for your, if you're on the premium site, pay your August bill, pay your September bill. I'll extend your subscriptions until Christmas-ish when the website will finally revert. So you'll get plenty of episodes that way. And I will cancel your auto renewals. I will cancel those, make sure nobody gets charged. And then we'll just do something else. I'll just be on YouTube for some time. There will be like, I think probably $5 a month for a premium membership. You won't see any ads, and I will do some members only content whenever I get a chance to. How about that? These years of me working on those monster slideshows are over. But that was as much for my benefit as yours. So thank you for all of your support doing that. Mwah. But I'm going to take a break from that level of work for now. Especially when I don't need those to be pitching another documentary series that no one at the moment, with the recession coming, and I'm sorry the recession has started. I hate to be the one to tell you that. So, yeah, but Abraham Zapruder turns out to be an interesting person, right? Throw me all your crazy JFK stuff. I just haven't had time to deal with it properly up until now. So I don't know if any of those people are, I know a couple of those people are still, they got one ear open. Hey, Nathan. So we'll just start, feel free. Now you can bring up JFK anytime you want to, because that's really the granddaddy of, when we talk about this, it came from way deep in the past. It goes on today in the present. I think the real peak of that cake is JFK. I think their masterpiece is JFK. The first real live, full-blown operation was the phony kidnapping of the Lindbergh baby. I think their apotheosis, I think their Gethsemane, I think their Golgotha was JFK. Because on top of everything else, he is a sacrifice. Just like Lincoln, just like Julius Caesar. I think it's important that Plutarch tells us that Brutus told the other conspirators, let's kill him boldly but not wrathfully. Let's carve him as a dish fit for the gods. He's saying, let's make this a human sacrifice. He's saying that, and this is part of Julius Caesar's apotheosis. I haven't shown you that. I didn't show you anything. Let me show you something real quick. Let me do a quick... I haven't even talked about today's topic. This is the temple of Quaus Julius Caesar. This is a temple dedicated to the deified Julius Caesar. I think he planned his own death as a sacrifice. He was 56 years old. There was nothing left to do except get mired down in the swamp of government, day-to-day government. It was either conquer the Parthians once and for all. So when he announced he was going to try to do that, they didn't have satellite phones. They didn't have telegraph. He would have to leave a proxy behind to conduct his business in Rome, and everybody knew that meant Mark Antony, the sociopath, and they were not going to put up with that. Well, the only way to undermine Mark Antony's authority would be to kill Caesar, so that's part of what they did. But there are 12 of them. Are there 12 of them or 6 of them who stab Caesar? But they don't do it inside. They do it outside. They do it on Pompey's porch. You think it's this grand portico, but it's really, these little cheap imitation colonial working class houses with the little tiny concrete stoop and the little tiny roof thing. That's Pompey's porch. Archaeologists have found Pompey's porch. It's literally like 3 feet by 3 feet concrete pad with post holes. That was Pompey's porch. He had his own private interest built so they could conduct business. The Senate building was too small, and they took over this huge theater that had been built. And then to have the consuls not have to, he had a special entrance built for himself, or his father did. Et tu, Brute? Yeah, in all the plays and movies, everybody gathers around and they stab Caesar, and then he looks up and says, Et tu, Brute, and then he dies. No, that isn't even how it's written. What happens is he's stabbed in the back first by Decius Brutus, but Decius is actually aiming for his heart. He's trying to just put him out. He aims for his heart, but Caesar was paranoid. He was wearing some armor or something, and it missed, and it went between the pectoral muscle and the ribs or something. And Caesar jumped up and grabbed his sword. They went to the Senate armed in those days. Caesar was known as the greatest swordsman in Europe. Killed 33 men in single combat. He jumps up to defend himself, and he expects some of his dogs. Like literally, the only reason Brutus and Cassius are still alive is because Caesar pardoned them for their roles in conspiring against him. You know where you find gratitude? You find gratitude in the dictionary between gonorrhea and gynecologist. And then he looks around, and even Brutus, who he treated like a son legally, if not but Mark Antony's Romans win. He turns around and says, "And you, Brutus, then fall, Caesar." But I think, just like Abraham Lincoln, I think he kind of arranged for it or tempted it to the point where so he could be sacrificed, and that would complete the steps to becoming a god. Because he clearly tried to posture himself as an Eastern god king. He tried wearing the purple, which is the robe the Eastern god kings wore purple. That Tyrrhenian purple from Tyre, the seacoast city, those snails that make that very particular imperial purple dye, super rare, super expensive. Well, but Ivana, see, there's 2 ways of reading that story. The other one is that because Brutus gives the speech justifying what they did, and Brutus said, "As I slew my best friend, the person who was the greatest friend to me in the world, for the good of my country, so I have the same dagger for myself when it shall please my country to need my death." I think this was part of. There's a plan to this, and just like Abraham Lincoln. What could Lincoln do except get bogged down in 4 years of ordinary day-to-day government? The only thing left to do is to be sacrificed. Then, and the South has been avenged. There, you got your revenge. Let's move on. It's 1866. Let's move on. It's 1865. Let's move on. Your son's dead. Lincoln's dead. Let's move on. Kaisuteknon. But But teknon is stone, right? Kaisu teknon. And you teknon? Oh, that's a quote. Oh, Caesar. Caesar actually probably actually said Kaisu teknon. Kaisu teknon brute. Isn't he saying more like and your sword too? Something like that. It's very ritual, and of course it's very phallic, right? To be stabbed is very different from being hanged, like you would do for a criminal, or the Romans would crucify. He's supposed to be crucified. But getting stabbed is very phallic. Because this happens at the Lupercal, which is their spring phallic festival. Men are running naked through the streets, tagging women who get in their way. This is prom night. This is spring break. You know there's nothing new, right? My father described when his grandfather told him about the Wild West days. When he first went out west, the last couple of years of big cattle drives before the railroads got built out, he said the big thing about the Westerns was it wasn't that wild in those towns. Like he'd heard stories about, oh, last year, in Dodge City, things kind of got out of hand for a night or two. But the way my father described it, the way his grandfather described it, was more like spring break. This was young men, but going out west to make some money so they can buy a farm or a fishing boat or something. Have a little adventure. And then the girls, who are the unmarried girls who usually 15, 16, you're working as a school teacher, and they get on a train and go out west to meet the boys coming up from the south at the railhead with the cattle. And the girls you can get a job as a bar girl just hustling drinks. You don't have to be a prostitute. They had prostitutes. My great-grandfather said they had prostitutes, but they're few. The girls in the saloons were really just more, nice girls who went out west looking for husbands. It was spring break. Yeah, some of the girls are just there to let the guys spend their money on them, sure. But a lot of the girls went out there, maybe you meet yourself a future rancher or a future, guy discover gold or something. And it was just romantic. And the girls could make a little money and they could have a little fun and have a little adventure. He said it was very romantic. The girls would be in the hotel and the guys would all gather around on their horses, get all cleaned up as best they could, and they would serenade the girls and things like that. He said those things that happened in those movies happened maybe once a summer. There'd be some big fight in one of the bars, guys getting drunk over some broad. He said, but it wasn't like that every day. It was more they were knights on horseback, and these damsels in these castles. They were, because they're all teenagers. They're all teenagers. He said it wasn't half as wild as that. It was more romantic, and people got married, and yeah. Yeah. If you believe anything Plutarch tells you, 100 years had gone by. But Plutarch knows a lot about not Nero, Caligula. Because remember, history is always written about the losers, by the winners. The Caesar party has kind of been thrown over, and so now we cast them in a bad light. Most history is, first of all, history is never about the past. History is always about the present. Number 2, history is written by the winners, not by the losers. Things like that. So, this is the temple of Julius Caesar. I think he staged his own assassination as a sacrifice. And I just think it's interesting that Plutarch puts that into his history of what happened. Yeah, I've talked about this before. So once again, when you go to the gas pump and you're paying $6 a gallon, it's over this stupid propaganda myth. It's not even a Jewish propaganda myth. It's a Greek propaganda myth. The mythological kingdom of Israel that never existed. My dinner's almost ready. I'm losing my voice. We'll come back. But think, you've heard the concept of the Watchers, right? We're going to be talking about, and I don't have to use the private channel for this either. The Watchers, think about the Mormons, think about Jehovah's Witnesses. Who are the Watchers? Who is Enoch? Yeah, Ivana, you know nothing about Paul Revere. You know absolutely nothing about Paul Revere. But I can do all that stuff on YouTube. You can't libel the dead. I wouldn't be libeling the dead. Those people are much more interesting than you've ever been told. Abraham Lincoln is much more interesting than you've ever been told. JFK, far less interesting. Adolf Hitler, far less interesting. They were just cardboard sociopaths. They were literally poster boys who got a little out of hand. Wolfie Schicklgruber got way out of hand, but he never ran anything. He interfered relentlessly. He disrupted, he ruined, he broke, but he didn't run anything. Yeah, I'll come back. I'll come back again to Israel. Oh, and remember this. This is from Genesis. At that time the Nephilim appeared on earth, after the sons of God had laid down with the daughters of men who bore them sons. They were the heroes of old, the men of renown. Remember, there are people walking the face of this earth today, running for president of the United States of America, who believe they are descended from those sons of the Nephilim. They believe that they are superior creatures, and we will be talking about them. I'm Professor Thomas Henry Horan, asking you to please stay plugged in to the Stones Unturned podcast.
He reads everything.
Shane, you're talking about Cincinnatus, or as the Romans would have pronounced it, Cincinnatus, or maybe Cincinnatus. Cincinnatus. That's the guy you're talking about. There's a famous statue of George Washington that's kept in an attic where you can never see it, where he is portrayed as Cincinnatus. I didn't mean to give you my germs. Quick, buy down in your scopolamine capsules and inject yourselves with the vaccine. I think. Okay.